The morning light rose gently over the quiet town as if uncertain whether it should reveal the truth hidden inside one particular house, a truth that had been building silently for years, folding itself into the walls and the wooden floors and the breaths of a young woman who had never been allowed to choose the rhythm of her own life. Her name was Sanaa. A name that meant brilliance, hope, radiance, yet her days rarely reflected that meaning, for every dawn arrived with a familiar weight, and every night ended with a silent wish that somehow tomorrow would bring something different, something hers. She sat on the edge of her bed, her fingers brushing lightly against the fabric of the sheets. She had grown up with the same sheets that had seen her laugh in secret, cry in silence, dream in the shadows of expectations laid upon her long before she understood what expectations even were. Her room felt smaller than ever that morning, as if the walls themselves were leaning and reminding her of the invisible borders she had never been allowed to cross. The light entered the room softly, but even the softest light can expose what one tries hardest to hide. Her heart was trembling, not because of fear, but because she sensed the day was going to change something irreversible in her path. Downstairs, voices murmured the way they always did, her mother moving with quiet resignation, her father clearing his throat in the way that signaled a decision had solidified overnight.
Sanaa knew the sound.
A decision made without her, a direction chosen by someone else, a future handed to her without any space to speak. Her breath shook inside her chest when her mother's voice traveled up the staircase, calling her name, a voice weary, tender, dutiful, shaped by the same traditions that now threatened to claim Sanaa's entire life. When Sanaa descended the stairs, her mother gestured for her to sit. The living room carrying an unusual stillness, like a courtroom moments before the verdict. Her father cleared his throat again, and then the words came.
A proposal has arrived. It is a good family, they said. It is a final decision, they said.
Preparations will begin tomorrow, they said. Not a single sentence asked her what she wanted. Not a single breath offered her a choice. For a moment, she simply stared at the space between her parents, where her life seemed to be slipping away in silence. Her heart pounded, not in defiance, but in a swelling grief for the future she had always kept hidden in the corners of her mind. She had imagined herself studying law, speaking for those who could not speak for themselves, stepping into a courtroom with the purpose she felt growing inside her with every book she read in secrecy, every paragraph that filled her with a quiet fire. But dreams for girls like her were often treated as passing clouds, never allowed to become storms. Her mother looked at her with a mixture of affection and helplessness, as if she wished she could take her daughter's hands and place an entire different world inside them, but fear and tradition kept her fingers locked. Her father looked at her with a firmness that decades of cultural weight had etched into his bones. And Sanaa sat there with a breaking heart and a rising truth. She would be sent into a marriage she did not choose, a life she did not want, a fate she could not breathe inside. That night, while the house slept deeply, Sanaa stayed awake, staring at the faint reflection of herself in the darkened window. She looked like a ghost of the woman she wished she could become. Her reflection asked quietly, "Is this truly all there is? Is obedience the only language you will ever speak? Will your dreams only survive in the margins of your diary?" She reached beneath her pillow, pulling out the worn notebook she had filled with unspoken desires, dreams that never had a voice in daylight. She opened it to a blank page, and her hand trembled. Her pen touched the paper, and the words came like a broken whisper. "If I give up now, I will never forgive myself. If I let them take this choice from me, I will lose everything that makes me feel alive. What is a life without freedom? What is a soul without a voice?" Tears fell silently onto the page, leaving small dark marks like tiny wounds. But with each sentence she wrote, her resolve began to strengthen. She would not stay. She could not stay. Not when the world outside might still hold a space for her. Not when she felt the fire inside refusing to die out quietly. When dawn returned, she had not slept, but her decision stood taller than the morning light. While the house prepared for another day, unaware of the storm forming in her heart, Sanaa quietly packed a small bag. Just a few clothes, her notebook, and the courage she had waited her entire life to feel. She paused at the doorway to her room, absorbing the memories, the laughter she once had, the childhood that ended too early, the dreams that began here in secret. She touched the doorframe gently, as if saying goodbye to the girl who lived here. And then she stepped away. For the first time, not as a daughter following every rule, but as a woman choosing her own breath. She moved through the house like a shadow, careful, silent, determined. The front door creaked slightly, and for a moment, she froze, thinking someone would appear behind her, call her name, pull her back into the life she was trying so desperately to escape. But no one came. And so she stepped outside, where the early air wrapped around her with a chill that felt strangely like freedom. At the edge of the road, she hesitated, not because she doubted her choice, but because stepping away from everything you have ever known, even if everything has confined you, still requires a courage no one teaches. The world ahead felt enormous. Yet it also felt like the first honest breath she had ever taken. She walked to the bus station, hugging her bag tightly. The roads looked different today. Not like boundaries, but like possibilities. Every step was a challenge to the life she had been trained to accept, every step a declaration that she existed beyond obedience. When the bus approached, she felt her heartbeat rise. The doors opened with a soft hiss, and she climbed aboard, finding a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, she watched her town grow smaller until it became nothing more than a blur of muted colors. And then it vanished entirely, like an old chapter closing itself. The city she arrived in was louder, brighter, filled with strangers and hopes she had not yet learned how to hold. She walked with uncertainty until she reached the address. She had memorized, an organization that helped girls and women escaping forced marriages and unsafe homes. She stood before the building, trembling. She had imagined this moment so many times, but the reality felt raw and overwhelming. Still, she knocked. And when the door opened, a woman with kind eyes greeted her gently, as though she already understood the weight Sana carried. Inside, they offered her tea, a blanket, a place to rest, but more importantly, they offered her something she had never been given before.
Choice.
Her voice. Her future. That night, in a small, safe room, she sat on the bed, breathing slowly. For the first time, she felt like her life belonged to her, even if only by a thin, fragile thread. She opened her notebook again and wrote, "I am not running away. I am walking toward the woman I am meant to be." And as she placed the notebook back down, a quiet resolve settled deep within her. She would study. She would rise. She would reclaim everything she had been denied. And she whispered into the stillness of the room, "I am not done. I am only just beginning." The morning in the shelter was gentle, softer than any morning Sana had known in years, as if the world itself was granting her a small space to breathe before asking her to stand again. She woke slowly, her mind still carrying the echoes of the night before, the decision she had made, the freedom she had claimed, the courage she had finally stepped into. For a moment she lay still, letting the new silence wash over her. It was a silence without expectation, without judgment, a silence that belonged to her. When she walked into the communal kitchen, the woman from the previous night smiled warmly at her and handed her a cup of tea. No questions, only kindness. It was so unfamiliar that Sana felt her throat tighten. The woman sat with her, speaking softly about the support they could offer, accommodation, legal advice, emotional guidance, education pathways. But when she mentioned education, Sana's eyes lit up with a glow she had hidden her entire life. She hesitated before speaking, her voice quiet yet unshakably clear. "I want to study law." The woman paused, looking at her with a deep, intuitive understanding.
"Law suits you," she said.
"Because I can see you already carry truth like a blade." And for the first time, Sana felt seen, not as a daughter or a future wife, but as a person with a mind, with a purpose, with a future that could unfold on her own terms. The shelter helped her enroll in a college access program designed for women rebuilding their lives. On her first day, she walked through the entrance of the building with trembling hands. The hall was alive with the rustle of books, the shuffle of footsteps, the low murmur of ambition. She felt smaller than everyone else, felt like a single uncertain note in a room full of confident symphonies. But the moment she opened a textbook, something inside her settled. Law felt like home. Its language, its logic, its pursuit of justice, it all resonated with the fire she had been nurturing quietly in her chest since childhood. Her days became a rhythm of study, early mornings, long evenings, silent determination, and whispered prayers to a future she was trying to believe in. Her nights were filled with notes and highlighters, her worn notebook always close by, where she wrote letters to the woman she hoped to one day become. Sometimes she doubted everything. Sometimes her hands trembled over her papers, sometimes her breath shook under the weight of how far she still had to go. But every time she felt herself slipping, she remembered the moment she stepped out of her old home. She remembered the doorway she left behind and the life she refused to surrender to. She told herself that courage is not loud. Sometimes courage is simply refusing to return. Months turned into a year. Her grades rose steadily. She discovered that she had a sharp, intuitive mind with a natural instinct for arguments and analysis. Her teachers praised her dedication, and her essays became known for their clarity and empathy. She worked part-time in the library, shelving books and studying between shifts, quietly building a life no one had ever imagined for her. But even as she grew stronger, the shadows of her past lingered. Some nights she woke in fear, worried her family would find her, worried that the world she had fled would pull her back into its grip. Other nights, she felt guilty for leaving them behind, for disobeying expectations, for walking away from the girl she once was. Healing was not a straight path. It was a looping journey full of bruised memories and tender victories. One evening after class, she sat alone in the library. The light was soft, the room quiet, and the smell of old paper wrapped around her like comfort. As she read about human rights law, something stirred within her. She felt an undeniable calling, a realization that this path was not just hers. It belonged to every girl who had been silenced, every woman who had been denied choice, every voice that had been lost in the heavy shadow of tradition. She wanted to fight for them, not with anger, but with truth, with dignity, with the law. She closed her textbook and opened her notebook, writing in steady, determined strokes. One day I will stand in a courtroom and speak for those who cannot speak. One day I will help build a world in which no woman has to run to be free. One day I will become everything they said I could never be. The dream of Harvard began as a quiet, fragile thought, a name she barely dared to whisper even to herself. But the more she learned, the more she grew, the more she realized that her limits were not where others had drawn them. Her limits were only where she stopped trying. And she was not ready to stop. She applied for scholarships. She wrote personal statements with trembling hands, telling her story without shame, but without bitterness. Just truth. She knew her past was heavy, but she hoped that somewhere someone would read her words and feel the weight of her determination. Weeks passed without any news. She hid her nervousness behind her studies, but her heart twisted every time she checked her email. And then one rainy afternoon, as she sat by the window watching droplets race down the glass, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it casually. Then she froze. Her breath caught. Her heart surged into her throat. Harvard Law School. Decision notification available. She clicked the link with shaking fingers. The page loaded slowly, painfully. And then the words appeared. She read them once. Then again, because she could not believe they were real. We are pleased to offer you admission. Her vision blurred. Tears spilled down her cheeks without restraint. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to stifle the sob that rose from somewhere deep inside her. Everything she had survived, everything she had fought for, every night she had studied until her eyes burned, it all collapsed into this one moment of overwhelming truth. She had done it. She had been seen. She had been chosen. She had been believed in. She sank onto the floor, her back against the wall, her tears falling freely. Her whole body shook with relief, with pride, with healing she had not known she needed. The shelter staff rushed to her room when they heard her crying, and when she showed them the email, they embraced her with joy. They told her she deserved this, that she had earned every step, that she was living proof of what courage could become. The weeks leading to her departure were surreal. She packed her life slowly, folding dreams into her luggage, one careful piece at a time. She wrote a letter to her family, one she did not send, but one she needed to write. It said, "I hope one day you understand that I did not leave out of defiance. I left to stay alive. And I hope that wherever you are, you find peace in knowing that I am safe." When she boarded the plane, she pressed her forehead to the window. The world below looked vast and fragile. The sky looked endless. For the first time, she felt that she too might be endless. Her fear remained with her, but it no longer controlled her. It simply reminded her of how far she had come. The plane rose higher, breaking through the clouds. Sanaa closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. She whispered to herself, "You have earned this. You are ready." When she stepped onto the campus grounds of Harvard Law School, her heart pounded with awe. The buildings towered with history, the pathways hummed with ambition, students walked with confidence that radiated from them openly. She felt small again, just as she had felt on her first day of college. But this time the smallness did not frighten her. It humbled her. It grounded her. It reminded her that growth often begins quietly. She walked through the courtyard, breathing in the crisp air. Every corner seemed to whisper stories of those who had come before her. Every step reminded her that she was rewriting everything she had ever been told. She was not supposed to be here. Yet here she was. Not by chance, but by relentless effort and unbroken spirit. Her first lecture felt like stepping into a new world. Students around her spoke with confidence, challenging professors, debating cases, analyzing arguments. At first, she felt lost, drowning in a sea of intellect. But when she raised her hand for the first time and spoke, the room fell into a brief, thoughtful silence. Her voice carried weight. Her perspective held depth. The professor nodded with respect, and Sanaa felt a spark of belonging. Nights in the library became her sanctuary again. She studied late under golden lamps, her notebook open beside her. She worked harder than she had ever worked. She carried her past like armor, not like a wound. Some nights, she stepped outside into the cold air, letting the wind brush against her face. She thought of the girl she used to be, the one sitting in her small childhood room, secretly dreaming of a future she never thought she could claim. She thought of the doorway she walked through when she left home, of the bus ride, of the first day in the shelter, of her trembling hands opening the acceptance email. All the moments that led her here, all the pain that grew into purpose. She whispered into the night, "I am becoming who I was meant to be." The seasons shifted gently around her as her studies deepened and her understanding of the law grew roots. There were days when the weight of the work pressed on her shoulders like an invisible boulder, but she carried it with a fierce, quiet determination because she knew every page turned, every argument learned, every case studied was building the foundation of the woman she had promised herself she would become. She began to volunteer at a local legal clinic, taking on small responsibilities, at first helping with paperwork, translating stories for clients, listening to people who felt unheard. Listening became one of her strongest skills. She listened not just with her ears, but with her heart. And every story she heard reminded her of where she had come from, of why she had run, of why she had chosen this path. One evening, she sat across from a young woman who had come seeking help. The girl's hands trembled as she spoke, her voice breaking with fear and uncertainty. Sanaa recognized the look in her eyes. It was the same look she had once seen in the mirror the night before she left home. A look mixed with sorrow and desperation, and a tiny flicker of courage clinging to survival. As the girl finished speaking, Sanaa felt her own throat tighten. She leaned forward gently and said in a calm, steady voice, "You are not alone. We will help you. You are safe here." And in that moment, she understood that the law was not merely about arguments or logic. It was about shelter,
About dignity.
about reclaiming the right to breathe freely. When she graduated from Harvard, the ceremony felt unreal. The gown that lay over her shoulders carried the weight of every chapter she had lived, every tear she had shed, every step she had taken in the dark, believing that somewhere ahead there would be light. Her name was called. She walked across the stage. Applause rose around her. She felt her chest swell with emotion, so deep she thought it might break her. She had crossed an ocean of expectations and emerged on the other side transformed. Her teachers congratulated her. Her friends cheered. The woman from the shelter sent her a message filled with pride and affection. And Sanaa simply pressed her hand to her heart silently, thanking the universe for giving her the strength to walk the path she had chosen. Her first job as a lawyer was at a legal aid organization that specialized in helping women escape forced marriages, abuse, and coercion. On her first day, she walked into the office with her briefcase in hand, her breath steady, her eyes clear. She felt a quiet fire burning within her. Not anger, not vengeance, but purpose. A purpose carved from her own story, one she was now ready to use to uplift others. Her first case was that of a teenager named Arya. Arya had been threatened with an arranged marriage back home, her passport taken, her freedom stolen. Sanaa sat with her, listening patiently, guiding her gently through the legal process, giving her strength where fear threatened to overtake her. She prepared the case with meticulous precision, every document checked, every testimony detailed, every law leveraged. When the day of the hearing arrived, Arya held Sanaa's hand tightly, whispering, "I am scared." Sanaa squeezed her hand and replied softly, "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to stand even while trembling." In the courtroom, Sanaa stood before the judge, her voice steady and unwavering. She spoke with conviction shaped by her own history, her words carrying the weight of every girl who had ever been silenced. When the ruling was finally announced in Arya's favor, a wave of relief washed over the entire room. Arya burst into tears and hugged Sanaa, whispering thank you over and over. And Sanaa felt something bloom inside her, a healing she had not expected, a victory that echoed deeper than the walls of the courtroom. Word of her dedication began to spread. More clients came, more stories unfolded, more battles were fought. And one by one, she won them, not because she was invincible, but because she refused to give up on anyone. Her colleagues admired her resilience. Judges respected her clarity. And the women she helped looked at her with a gratitude that reached her very soul. With time, she developed a program that offered legal education workshops for young women across different communities, teaching them about their rights, their choices, their voices. Standing before rooms full of girls, she felt a tenderness bloom within her. She told them, "Your life belongs to you. You are allowed to dream. You are allowed to choose. Your heart, your mind, your future are not the property of anyone else. Every girl deserves freedom. Every girl deserves hope. Every girl deserves the chance to become everything she feels in the quiet of her soul." As the years passed, her story reached places she had never imagined on her darkest nights. Journalists interviewed her. Conferences invited her. Organizations honored her. But the recognition that mattered most came from the women she helped save. Each success added a soft golden thread to the tapestry of her purpose. One day, she received an invitation to speak at an international conference on human rights. The event was grand, elegant, filled with leaders and activists from around the world. Standing backstage, she felt her nerves tremble. But then she closed her eyes and remembered the younger version of herself sitting in her small childhood room, asking the wind whether she had any right to dream. She felt that girl inside her. Brave, tender, determined. And she whispered to her past self, "Look how far we have come." When she stepped onto the stage, the room fell quiet. Light bathed her face. Global leaders watched her with anticipation. She took a slow breath, letting the silence settle before she began. Her voice was gentle yet unbreakable. She spoke of hidden struggles, of traditions misused, of fear disguised as honor, of girls who were silenced before they ever had a chance to speak. She did not speak as a victim. She spoke as a survivor, as a woman who had transformed pain into purpose, as a legal advocate who believed in justice with her entire being. She said, "Freedom is not a privilege. It is a birthright. And no culture, no family, no expectation should ever be allowed to steal that from any girl anywhere in this world." When she finished, the hall erupted into applause that rolled through the room like a warm tidal wave. She felt tears prick the edges of her eyes, but she held them back until she stepped off stage. Then she let them fall not from sorrow, but from a deep, powerful gratitude. Later that night in her hotel room, she stood on the balcony looking out at the glittering city below, the soft wind brushing gently against her face. She felt the presence of her journey surrounding her. She thought of the girl she used to be, the one who wrote in her notebook at midnight, the one who left home with only courage and fear bundled together, the one who dared to believe she was meant for something more. Sanaa whispered into the night, "I am free. I am whole. I am home." And she knew then that her life no longer belonged to the shadows of her past. It belonged to every woman she had helped, every voice she had lifted, every heart she had reminded of its worth. She knew her purpose was far from finished. There were still countless stories waiting for a defender, countless voices waiting for an advocate, countless battles waiting for a woman strong enough to face them. And she was ready, not because she had conquered her past, but because she had learned to honor it, to carry it as a beacon rather than a burden, to use it as a bridge for others to cross into the light. Before going to bed, she opened her notebook again. The same notebook she had carried from her childhood home to the shelter, to college, to Harvard, to courtrooms, to conferences. Its pages fragile yet powerful. She wrote with steady, peaceful strokes, "I am the woman I needed when I was a girl, and I will spend my life becoming that woman for others." She closed the notebook gently and placed it beside her. A quiet calm wrapped around her, a sense of arrival, a sense of continuation. A sense of destiny fulfilled, yet still growing. Her story had begun in silence, in fear, in confinement, but it blossomed into a life of courage and justice and fierce compassion. She had escaped. She had risen. She had become. And somewhere in the quiet spaces of the night, the wind that once refused to answer her questions finally whispered back, "You were always meant to be free."